Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at player props here on a Friday. Getting ahead of this stuff a bit early. It's late night here on Thursday. Getting ahead of these lines with you guys. Make sure to subscribe to that page, though. Check out the best bets video we also have up for you for Friday. And head to thelines.com. Head to that NBA tab, use the prop finder tool that we have under there to make sure that you can see all the juice and odds that you're getting back here from these books, giving us bets this postseason. Nate, let's go ahead and get right into your first NBA player prop for Friday.
Yeah, Pascal Siakam, over 30.5 points and assists. I think the Pacers offense should be humming here at home, assuming Giannis is still out. I mean, yeah, you got to make sure Giannis is out before you're going to put like a full unit on this. I think because it's just the fact that the Bucks don't have a matchup for Siakam without Giannis. He's very clearly, too quick for Bobby Portis, and he understands exactly where to pull up and hit shots against Brook Lopez. He's just been very in control in these first two games, and obviously averaging 36.5 points with a great rating. Only shot 50% from the line. He's usually like an 80% free throw shooter, so there is still some positive room for regression here. And like I mentioned in the best bets, like the Bucks are selling out to keep Halliburton from scoring. Pat Bev's basically face guarding him, and that's just opening up the entire floor for Siakam to drive. He's shooting, he's scoring 75% of his points off drives, but some of those lanes might close up a little bit, and then he's going to kick it out more. I mean, he has had 4 assists on 7 potential assists, so you're really only adding like 3 assists here to his scoring prop, which has crept all the way up to like 27, 28. So I think it's good to just tack these on because the Pacers at home, we know they play faster. They've averaged 31 assists and 123 points. The Bucks on the road average more assists allowed, including 28.5 in losses. The biggest thing that scares me here is a blowout. I think the Pacers could just blow out this Bucks team if they're like going to play the health game and Middleton's not ready to go and they know Giannis isn't back yet. Like this could get out of hand. But if it's mildly competitive, like Game 2 was, where Siakam was just killing them down the stretch, he's going to do damage in the areas the Bucks give up, which is that like 10 to 14 foot range. They actually give up the most field goal attempts in that range under Doc Rivers and the 5th worst percentage to opponents.
Yeah, just want to for Pascal. Like I like all of it. I don't even hate the rebounds. They just got a little bit high for him, higher than normal. And I think you have to pay too much of a premium at this point for like 10.5 boards from a dude who was averaging like 7.5. So I think the points and assists are great. The potential assists have stayed high as you kind of were talking. So yeah, I'm with this. I was looking at it. I stayed away. I hate playing the Pacers, but this is the Pacer that I would play. This is the only dude that I'd feel comfortable with taking his props where they're at. Halliburton's assists are too high, whatever. I just there's no Pacers with with these other teams. We can go, okay, well, what happens when he plays 30 minutes? Because he's going to get that now in the playoffs. We know these rotations, but you look at the rotations for the Pacers, and I can't make rhyme or reason of it because they do have like 2 dudes that do everything. Except for Pascal. He's the only, the one you can't really clone is what the word I'm looking for. So love the Pascal. That's the only thing I would play there. I'm going to take another power forward, similar style of player here. We're going to take some PJ Washington over 17.5 points and rebounds. And I think this is a really good line for a couple of reasons. So PJ is going to be in because he's honestly, he's probably the best defender on the team overall. Like Gafford's been really good, but he's pretty one-dimensional. PJ Washington is an absolute beast on defense, all over the court, rim and out in the perimeter as well. So really love the fact that he's going to be out there. He guarded Paul George in the first game. Then he guarded Kawhi when he came back, and he was always going to be the Kawhi stopper, or at least, the guy on Kawhi as best he can. So I think he will continue to give him trouble, and that is going to guarantee us, I believe, at least 35 minutes. Sans a blowout, obviously, going to give us more of the same, because PJ Washington had the exact same performance in Game 1 and Game 2, which gives me a feeling of confidence in his consistency here. In Game 1, he had 12 rebound chances. Both games he had 12 rebound chances, 7 boards and 6 boards in this, respectively. 35 minutes in both of these games, 10 field goal attempts in both of these games, and it's just a matter of going 4 for 10 in one, shooting a little bit better in the second one. But really, it's about the volume here for him, and if he's going to take 10 shots and needs to make, let's say, 5 of them to get me to about 10 boards. Yeah, needs to make about 6 for 10, but plenty of those are close to the rim. And then we're in good position for him to get the 6 boards. That's where I'm at. And I like the over on both props, but I could see him going off a little bit more. If he makes a couple more threes, we get a little bit of help with the points. And if he does get maybe a couple more rebound chances, obviously we've got a better shot there. But I think either way, giving this like consistency with him makes me feel good about it. And the 35 minutes is huge here because the 35 minutes he's played in 7 games with Dallas, specifically with Dallas, and he went under in the first 2 when they were just like, yo, go out there. We're really happy to have you here. We're so glad you're not Grant Williams. Go play 35 minutes, even though you just got here, right? Sorry for the drive by Grant Williams. And so, then he's not really with the team. Plus, at that point in time, by the way, it was just a cold streak for dude. And that's why he was a great bet for like 2 weeks in a row of like hitting his threes, hitting his points and rebounds, because it's the same thing. He had to progress back to his averages after an abysmal start to the season, where his first like 15, because he's played 29, 30 games with this team now. His first 15 games, he was in the midst of shooting 30% from the field and 36% from deep. And then when you get to the last 5 where he's actually gone over, now he's back up to about 53% from the field and shooting about 38% from 3. This is where he lives, right? And the minutes have been enough. Even when he was shooting poorly, he was still close to these numbers. Once he started shooting right at his averages and not like way worse, then you give him 35 minutes and extrapolate all of his stats. And yeah, he's pretty comfortably over, at least at about 20. I'm not comfortably, but 20, right? You got a little bit of padding there. So with the amount of minutes that I expect him to play because of his importance on both sides of the floor, plus the fact that he's not in the midst of like the worst shooting slump of his career, I feel pretty good about him getting the 18 PR.
Yeah, and I respect PJ Washington. It makes sense that he played 35 minutes because that is exactly what Kawhi played in game 2. And I'm just going to take the big balls bet here and take Kawhi over 22.5 points, which you can get even money, and you're not going to get it this low again if he builds on the momentum he showed in the second half. Like, clearly he had some rust, was just not hitting his shots. He finished 0 for 5 from 3. He went 0 for 4 from 3 in the second half, but was 5 for 7 on his twos, on his bread and butter stuff, right? I mean, 2 for 3 on the 4 elbow touches he got. That's what we're going to see. And as good as PJ Washington is, honestly, I think he's one of the better matchups you can throw at Kawhi. Yeah. Like, it's when Kawhi gets it going, like, nobody's going to bother him. Like, he is one of those dudes. I mean, of course, he averaged, before Dallas had any sort of stopper, he averaged 37 on 74% field goal shooting in the 3 at Dallas in the series 3 years ago. In his last 3 regular season at Dallas, he shot 55%, averaged 29. I mean, I don't really have anything else for this other than the fact that, like, Kawhi, he didn't seem like he was out of shape. He just seemed like he hadn't played competitive basketball in several weeks. And it took him a little while to find the range and find the rhythm. And I think if you can capitalize on that, I mean, his usage rate was still a little bit higher than Harden and PG, and should remain that way as he gets into a duel. And look, the Clippers are one of the smartest teams in the league in terms of like getting the switch, getting the right matchup that they want. So he's not going to operate in ISO on PJ the entire game. You got Harden setting him up, should get him in good positions to score as he gets on track here.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to give me too much more than that to try to convince someone like, hey, do you think Kawhi can score like well under his playoff averages if he has any semblance of health? Then yeah, like this is a dude that you're like, I mean, 27 should be his floor when he's healthy in the playoffs based on the volume and the usage rate for him for sure, right? And I completely agree with that entirely. So like, I'm with the Kawhi stuff. I'm not gonna play that. I'm gonna be honest. Like I'm more of a wait and see in this instance kind of situation for me. But like I can, like I said, if that's your reasoning, then I'm here for it. I'm not worried about needing any more stats about Kawhi's amazingness in the postseason to convince me that he's capable of getting 23 points. It's only that low because of the health, and if he can overcome it, which is anybody's guess. Like, so it's 50-50 shot. You give yourself a little bit of an edge there if you think it's a really easy thing if he takes the normal like 18 to 22 shots. So I'm going to close it out with an under for Kevin Durant, under 3.5 assists. And it might seem scary to some, but this is like a pretty frequent under for him in the second half of this season. So in the last 15, he's gone under in 10 of 15. He's averaging 7 potential assists, and that includes these 2 playoff games where he's at about 6.7 potentials a game. He's averaging about 3. He's gotten 2, and was it 2-3 in this series? No, 2-1 in this series, right? He only got one in the first game, and against the Wolves, under in the last 4 after like the first 2 games of the year, and I believe Book was out for one of those where he had like 12 potential assists earlier in the season against the T-Wolves, and now we're talking about him with the full team intact, and like this isn't really a team that relies on assists as well. Let's be honest. And the thing about KD is, in the playoffs so far, and this is pretty average at his average for the season. If you look at his drives, right, which you can look at his tracking data and see how often he's driving, and he's driving a little bit less than Booker for the Suns specifically, and Beal. They both have a few more drives per game, but he's still at 10 drives per game where he's going to the bucket with the ball. He passes the ball 10% of the time when he's driving to the hoop. And that's one of the plays he does more than anything else. It's either a pull up or it's a drive, right? And really, the only assist he's getting is when the other team double teams him and runs at him and forces the ball out of his hands while he's on the wing, and he gives it to the corner or he gives it back to the top of the key, and that dude hits a 3. Like those are Kevin Durant assists, not 7-footer driving to the rim. Let me dish it off instead of just jumping to the rim. I'm 7 feet and have a 7'8" wingspan. Like I'm not going to pass. The thing is, there's no situation where Minnesota's like, well, we need to throw everybody at Kevin Durant. 1, this ain't your older brother's Kevin Durant, no shade. 2, right, in terms of turning the corner around people, not quite getting there as much. So 2, Jaden McDaniels, just Jaden McDaniels is just an absolute monster when it comes to defense right now. Like has completely like helped this series. I don't want to say he's the reason, but game 2, because of what he was doing on offense, I think it's safe to say that like Jaden McDaniels was the difference in that game, as the Suns couldn't really break open a lead in the first half, and then by the end of the first half, it was a 1-point game, and it was like all the momentum is now with Minnesota, thanks in very large part to Jaden McDaniels. So that's going to be a part of what I love about this one, and the fact that, like I said, the potentials are so low for him, and at this point in the season, they remain low. If you look at last playoffs, also remain pretty low in terms of the potentials when he's playing with Devin Booker. Now you've got Brad Beal out there as well. So yeah, I think even though it seems like a low number for one of the best players in NBA history, it's 3.5 assists, and I still get -108 on it. So yeah, I really like this bet for under.
Yeah, I mean, there were multiple times in game 2 where the Suns, when they actually ran a competent action and they got somebody open and Durant had the ball, he just decided like, you know what? No, I got this. And like, he's just going to take a mid range. And there were plenty of times that indicates that they did not run any sort of competent action. They still act like they haven't really played together, this big three, because they basically only played like 15 games or something and not that many minutes. And there was just no cohesion, no continuity because Beal wasn't out there. I mean, Durant did have a bunch of assists in the playoffs last year, but that was with Chris Paul injured, when it was totally just Durant and Booker facilitating everything. And now they do have Beal. But yeah, the Wolves defense pretty swarming. It's gonna be hard to pile up assists here. If the Suns get their offense going, it should be a lot of individual performances.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. This one scares me a little bit more than the last one I took, where I was really happy with it. But just because like it is something where it's like, well, it hasn't happened so often now, it's got to happen at some point for him to get the 4. But he's still averaging below that, like I said. So I'm gonna keep riding with it, even at this large amount of minutes for him. So that's all the time we have for you, though, in play of props in this one. Make sure to subscribe to that page so you can check out Best Bets, which we're bringing you alongside these videos every single day that we've got postseason action moving forward. Until we see you next, happy betting.
Stop.